With the start of the new year comes the Lunar New Year, a holiday for families. On this day, families come together, cook delicious food, and have a good time. But 32-year-old Jiahan isn't happy. She is an out-of-work freelancer, but most would say that she is unemployed. As she is cooking for the guests who have yet to arrive, her mother is watching a cute video of her grandson. But Jia is irritated that they are getting in her way and eating the food she cooked before everyone arrives. When she suggests that her parents should cook the food since they are eating it, Jia's mother reminds her that cooking is the least she could do since she lives at home and doesn't even pay rent. Jia's sister, Jimin, arrives with her family and her mother embraces her granddaughter. Jimin's husband is carrying the grandson and Jimin is exhausted from the trip and wants to sit down. Jia appears out of the shadows to greet her little sister. With an almost fake smile, Jia says she is happy to see her and hands her a flower print apron. Jimin responds by noting that the apron looks great on Jia and mocks her relationship status by saying all she needs to do now is walk down the aisle. But Jia doesn't find the joke funny. She insists Jimin puts on the apron to help her cook with a lifeless expression. Jia's mom is not impressed and hits her. Jia just wants someone else to cook. But Jimin's husband points out that Jimin is tired enough as is, suggesting she is pregnant with a third child. This is big news for the family and they start eating. Soon after, Jia is outside smoking and angry at her sister for her life and suggesting she meet with a guy she knows. Jia's sulking is interrupted by an unknown man who comments on Jia still having a foul mouth. This man is eating chicken breast in a smoking area, which confuses Jia. The man reveals that his name is Mincheol Jin and that he used to live next door and wear headphones a lot. Jia initially doesn't remember him, but then realizes that he used to be a scrawny gamer kid. Mincheol didn't think he changed that much though. But Jia insists that he changed a lot and notes that him eating chicken breast in a smoking area is strange. Mincheol explains he is here because his family wasn't happy with him not eating the Lunar New Year food because they had too many calories. Jia recalls that Mincheol is 32 years old, just like her. They used to live in the same building and were childhood friends, but not by choice. Mincheol was the shy kid that didn't get along with anyone in class. But Jia doesn't see the point in reminiscing and is wondering how Mincheol changed so much. She concludes that the city life changed him and he is now an assistant manager programmer at a well-known company and seems to live a decent life. Jia compares Mincheol to her life, where she constantly gets scolded at home and is unemployed, and is shocked that Mincheol is doing better than her. She starts to sulk again, but Mincheol interrupts her and asks how she is doing. Jia deflects the question and Mincheol says that he's just been living and while he thinks he's doing great, his parents think otherwise. His parents have been nagging him to get married and even signed up for a dating service with a registration fee of $5,000. Mincheol assumes Jia isn't in the same situation, but she is. Then, Jia suggests that they get married. Mincheol is shocked and Jia explains that since their parents are nagging them to get married, they should just get married to fix the problem. It would be a win-win scenario. To Jia's surprise, Mincheol asks Jia's dad for his blessing and they get married. They go to a tropical location for their honeymoon, and while she is drinking on the first night of her honeymoon, she finally realizes what just happened. She is shocked that she's not in a dream and is in another country married to Mincheol. Jia and Mincheol are now getting ready for bed and Mincheol is searching through his suitcase for something that would make their first night together good. Jia assumes that he is talking about something dirty and gets embarrassed, saying she is not ready. To her surprise, Mincheol hands her earplugs. He says that sometimes he snores and then goes to sleep. When Mincheol starts snoring, Jia uses the earplugs and goes to sleep, noting that Mincheol is very practical and prepared. The next day, Jia is concerned that her happy honeymoon can be disastrous if they start fighting. As Jia is carefully choosing her clothes, Mincheol appears in unfashionable but comfortable clothing and asks how much longer Jia is going to take. He is even wearing socks with sandals. Mincheol asks if it matters and Jia says it does because she will be looking. Since their schedule isn't tight, they go clothes shopping. While Jia doesn't know much about fashion, she thought anything else would be better. She was wrong. Mincheol comes out in a red and blue outfit with suspenders. His justification is that the colors are bright so he won't get hit by a car. Jia gives him a shirt and pants to try and she says they look nice to her. Mincheol proceeds to ask the clerk for 7 sets of the outfit. Jia is outraged but Mincheol says that since it looks good, he should have several of them. Jia decides to pick out a few new outfits so he can rotate between them. While she is looking, Mincheol notices the swimsuits, This prompts him to ask Jia if he can pick out a swimsuit for her for their banana boat ride. Jia agrees without thinking but is embarrassed when she realizes what he asked. Jia and Minchil finished shopping and are heading toward the shore. But Jia is still embarrassed that Minchil picked out her swimsuit. She is obligated to wear it at their next activity and doesn't even know what kind of swimsuit he bought. Jia thinks he bought a sexy one, but that was not the case. Minchil bought her a wetsuit to match his. To Minchil, this was the best choice because they are comfortable and insulated. But to Jia, his choice is embarrassing because this is their honeymoon and everyone else is in bikinis and swim shorts. She was concerned that it would be too hot. To her surprise, the wetsuit was very comfortable. The two had a wonderful time on the banana boat, eating and taking pictures. Toward the end of the day, Jia and Minchil were walking on the beach. Jia wants to do as much as possible because the trip was expensive. But Minchil is concerned that Jia is tired and points out an injury on her heel. Jia was too caught up in the fun to notice it. Minchil offers to give Jia a piggyback ride because walking on an injured heel must hurt. Jia is hesitant because of the schedule, but she eventually hops on Minchil's back. Jia is embarrassed and asks if she is heavy. Minchil points out how her weight makes it a good workout and Jia is offended by this. As they are going, Jia feels comfort from Minchil's back. Jia notices how beautiful the sunset is and insists they take a picture. Minchil doesn't want to, but Jia says that they should live in the moment. Back at the hotel, Jia is looking at the picture and remembers her sister saying that couples normally fight on their honeymoon. But Jia and Minchil didn't fight and they had a lot of fun. But Jia is still embarrassed about being on Minchil's broad warm back. This feeling quickly goes away as she sees Minchil sleeping. She is satisfied with the trip. Back in Korea, Jia's mom made a lot of food and packed boxes to celebrate her coming back and so she can move in with Minchil. Jia is apprehensive but remembers that she agreed to this when she got married. After the move, Minchil presents Jia with a paper. Jia remembers something random about a cartoon theme song. The lyrics were "Just do it, just do it. It's okay to make mistakes because you aren't an adult yet." Jia is just realizing now that this means that you're screwed if you make mistakes as an adult. The point is that since Jia said they should get married, her life has spiraled out of control and now she is living with Minchil. Back the paper. The paper is a contract for living together. Jia is shocked and throws it on the floor. She accepts that they need a contract and they each write 3 conditions. Minchil's rules are no smoking, don't bother mouse, and say something if something is wrong. Jia's rules are don't enter a room without knocking, don't force anything, and communicate if something is wrong. Jia is outraged about the no smoking rule. Not even her dad could get her to stop. But Minchil doesn't like the smell so he says to smoke in moderation. Jia asks who Mouse is. Mouse is Minchil's cat who is currently at Jia's feet. The cat is named Mouse because cats like mice. Jia eventually says she likes cats, but asks what would happen if she didn't. Minchil says that he would just get another room for Jia to live in. Money wouldn't be a problem because Minchil is serious about marriage. They agree on the rest of the terms and form an official contract. Minchil adds one more thing. Any party can terminate the contract marriage at any time. Jia foreshadows that the contract will bring them many tears and laughs. On the first night living together, Jia decides to not unpack yet and order some furniture. Minchil goes back to work tomorrow and Jia is anxious about living with someone other than her family. Minchil, on the other hand, is not worried and is gaming. The next day, Jia is woken to the sound of Minchil cooking breakfast. Jia is impressed and decides to eat since she's up. But this feeling quickly went away as Minchil put the ingredients into a blender to make a chicken breast smoothie. Jia thinks it tastes terrible and asks if they are having anything else. Minchil says yes and hands her a protein bar. Jia is mad and complains that this isn't real food and comments how Minchil is going to eat a delicious lunch at work by himself. Minchil disproves this by revealing his healthy lunch. Jia looks in the fridge for something to eat and it's filled with healthy food. Jia has a newfound gratitude toward her mom's cooking. Seeing Jia like this, Minchil suggests Jia go out and get breakfast by herself. Jia asks if that's okay and Minchil says that all he needs is his smoothie. Jia has been in the habit of eating with her family, but remembers this is a contract marriage. Minchil leaves and Jia says she's going to get a job soon and that she'll see him at dinner. The moment Minchil leaves, Jia takes back her words and proudly says she's going to stay unemployed until her bank is empty. Minchil is walking to work and gets into the car of his colleague, Sang Yu Choi. He is surprised that Mincheol suddenly asked him to hand in his request to take 10 days of vacation. Sang-yu notices that Mincheol is smiling, which he rarely does, and asks if something good happened. Mincheol remembers Jia saying goodbye to him, and he responds by saying it's nice knowing someone is waiting for you at home. Sang-yu is confused, but Mincheol clarifies that his wife is at home. Sang-yu is shocked. He thinks Mincheol is messing with him until Mincheol confirms he got married last week. When they get to work, everyone is congratulating Mincheol, and he hands them souvenirs from his honeymoon. But before Sang-yu can get to work, manager Suyeon-so pulls him aside and is angry that Mincheol got married, suggesting she liked him. Sang-yu responds by saying that it was unexpected because Mincheol didn't seem interested in girls. 33-year-old Suyeon's past is now summarized. She was seen as a child genius and just wanted a moderately okay guy. As she climbed to success, she remained single. She is annoyed that she can't find a decent guy. Then she realizes that this decent guy she wanted was Mincheol. But her dreams of marrying Mincheol are now shattered. All she can do now is consult with the Sang-yu who went to university with her and is the quote-unquote company Cupid. After work, Sang-yu and Suyeon follow Mincheol home to check if he's really married. Then, they see Mincheol talking to a girl on the street just to see an angry Jia smoking. Jia is angry because Mincheol didn't call her when he was coming home late because she waited for him to eat dinner. Sang-yu and Suyeon are skeptical that Jia is the type of girl Mincheol is interested in. Mincheol assumes Jia didn't want to eat with him because of what happened at breakfast, but Jia insists the problem is that he didn't call her. Mincheol asks if he is allowed to call her because Jia didn't like him calling her in 5th grade when he called to play. Jia said that she had to use the house phone, but is interrupted when he sees two people looking at them around the corner. Sang-yu and Suyeon hide and Mincheol confirms that he is allowed to call Jia. Mincheol had another chicken breast smoothie for dinner. Jia recalls her past with Mincheol and remembers that she stopped hanging out with him around 5th grade. They were close when they were younger, but stopped because she was teased for hanging around a boy. Jia continued to ignore Mincheol throughout middle school. Jia now feels bad about being angry at Mincheol. Before she can apologize, Mincheol sends Jia her favorite food, which is spicy chicken feet. Then, Jia barges into Mincheol's room. Instantly, Mincheol points out how she broke the rule, but Jia says that since there's a problem, they need to talk it out to fix it. Jia and Mincheol sit down to talk. Jia starts by complaining how Mincheol didn't get her beer to accompany her chicken feet. Jia gets to the point and says they haven't had a real conversation before, so she thought it would be good to talk and eat. Jia offers a beer to Mincheol, which he instantly rejects. Jia is concerned, but Mincheol just doesn't want to lose his gains. Instead of beet, Mincheol gets water and he asks what Jia wanted to talk about. Jia didn't have anything planned and is just going to make it up. 2 hours later, Jia is drunk and talking about Mincheol and her playing games in the past. Then, Jia fell asleep. Mincheol abruptly wakes her up with an alarm and tells her to go to her room and sleep and that he'll clean up. Jia notes that she is drunk because she drank the alcohol she bought for 2 people. In her drunken state, Jia asks Mincheol if she can see his ear. When Mincheol approaches, Jia takes his glasses and points out how his eyesight is bad. Mincheol wants them back and pushes Jia against the wall. She is having fun until she realizes that Mincheol is very attractive without his glasses, and they are very close together, so she gets embarrassed. Jia gives the glasses back and flees to her room. She is very embarrassed and doesn't know what to do. The next day, Jia stares at Mincheol as he leaves for work. She wants to apologize about last night, so things can go back to normal. When she attempts to say sorry, she gets nervous and says I meow because the cat said meow. Mincheol is confused. At work, Mincheol asks Sung-yu about Jia's meowing. Sung-yu thinks he is bragging, but Mincheol is genuinely confused. Sung-yu suggests that Jia was trying to be cute, but Mincheol says they aren't close enough to joke around together. Sung-yu, who supposedly has a doctorate in loviology, has a simple solution. He says that Mincheol needs sympathy. So, when he gets home, Mincheol meows at Jia. Jia falls to the floor in embarrassment. Mincheol states that Sung-yu said this would help, but Jia is mad that he told other people about it. To avoid situations like this, they added a clause in their contract to keep what happens between them a secret. A few days after, Suyeon suggests that Mincheol host a housewarming party. When Mincheol tells Jia this, she is initially hesitant, but she eventually agrees to do it. Mincheol asks why, but Jia insists. Housewarming parties are parties held after getting a new house or getting married. It is a party to ask for people's continued support in the future. It's not required, but it's something that only happens once or twice in your lifetime. You'd normally want to avoid it because it's a lot of work, but Gia wants to because Mincheol hates the idea. This is revenge for making her embarrassed yesterday. The next day, after protesting with Gia about how they don't need to have a party, he leaves for work with a smile. Gia has noticed a few key traits about Mincheol. Number 1. Mincheol is all about efficiency, almost like an eco-friendly robot. Number 2. Mincheol is weak to requests and will comply if you push enough. Based on these traits, Gia thinks Mincheol was going to tell the office that his wife didn't want to have a housewarming party. Gia gets embarrassed by what Mincheol refers to her at work. Gia starts preparations and starts to regret it. She doesn't know how to cook well and calls her mother for help. Soon, everyone arrives and Gia whispers to Mincheol that he should be nice to her. Everyone is amazed at the array of food Gia cooked. Mincheol clearly doesn't want to be there and even starts drinking. Sung-yu asks Soo-yeon if she is satisfied in knowing Mincheol is actually married, but she isn't and has something prepared to test them. Sung-yu starts by saying they'd like to use this time to get to know Mincheol better. Everyone wrote down something they wanted to know about him. The first request is Soo-yeon's. It is for them to kiss. Gia wants to hear the first request, but Sung-yu is apprehensive and skips to the next question. Gia says that to prevent a headache, they should just pretend to be a happy couple. The next question is when, where, and how did he propose? If they can't answer, they have to drink a whole glass of beer. Gia can't think of a good fake response, but Mincheol says that Gia proposed in a smoking area while he was eating chicken breast. While this is true, Gia decides to not say anything and drink. The next question is when and where was their first kiss? The problem is, they haven't kissed and even fake kissed at their wedding. Gia decides to drink, but to her surprise, Mincheol says they kissed at 5 years old in kindergarten. Gia doesn't remember, but Mincheol reminds her that her nickname in kindergarten was the smooching ghost because she went around kissing everyone. Gia is mad that Mincheol would bring this up. The party soon ended and everyone went home, but Sung-yu and Soo-yeon agree that their actions seem fake. When Sung-yu asks if they should look deeper, Soo-yeon says no. Sung-yu is shocked and almost gets into an accident. Soo-yeon says that it's okay because she didn't think she could force her way into their relationship. Sung-yu is surprised and decides they should go drink at a fancy barbecue place. Suddenly, they ended up waking up in the same bed together naked. Will this be the start of a romantic relationship? Back in Gia and Mincheol's apartment, Gia explains why talking about them kissing in kindergarten and proposing in a smoking area is embarrassing. Gia thinks this is common sense, but remembers that he's dealing with Mincheol. Gia says they should pick another time for their first kiss. Before they can decide, Gia gets a call from her mom. Her mom called to say Spaghetti Man Loses His Way came out today. Spaghetti Man is a work that started hero movies. Gia asks if her mom watched the movie as soon as it came out and says yes. Immediately after, Gia's mom tries to spoil the movie, but Gia ends the call before she gets the chance. Gia's family has a punishment system where if you don't watch a movie the day it comes out, someone who watches it will spoil it for everyone. The competition is fierce for big movies like Spaghetti Man, so Gia decides Mincheol and her need to watch it right now. Gia is enjoying herself with her popcorn, but Mincheol looks nervous. He says that this feels like a date. Gia is shocked. The movie was very good and they got embarrassed while trying to eat popcorn at the same time. Gia wonders what Mincheol thinks of the movie. Little does she know, Mincheol has been following the Spaghetti Man series for 20-some years. On their way out, Gia is talking about the movie with Mincheol and realizes that this feels like a date. Then, Gia gets pushed from behind and Mincheol catches her in his arms. Due to the sudden nature of the catch, they ended up accidentally kissing. Mincheol puts her down. Gia says that it didn't count because of the 3-second rule and then runs away in embarrassment. Mincheol found Gia in the smoking area and made her air out her clothes. Mincheol then confirms the kiss didn't count because of the 3-second rule. They then decide to go to lunch and Gia can't get the image of the kiss out of her head. Gia feels like she's overreacting, but Mincheol says he needs to get something off his chest and reveals the kiss was actually 5 seconds. Mincheol suggests they make this first kiss, but Gia is mad and runs away because she couldn't look at Mincheol. Gia decided to move in with her sister. Jaemin and Jinwoo are not impressed. Then, the 13,261st Gia Summit started. This included Gia from 6 different ages. She explains the situation and thinks that what Mincheol said was rude. Gia didn't want to go back to her parents' place, so she is at Jimin's place now. 15-year-old Gia asks if she can stay at a friend's place, but that is not possible. Gia's plan works because Jaemin owes her for bringing them together. giving them money for dates and convincing them to get married. However, Jaemin is not happy, despite the gift. Jia and Jaemin start talking. They note how Jimin's children take after Jia, and when she tries to spoil the Spaghetti Man movie, Jia reveals she already watched it. Jaemin asks what happened with Mincheol and guesses that Jia ran away after fighting with Mincheol. Jia confirms this. Jaemin then agrees to let Jia stay there to babysit the kids so they can go out. Jia isn't happy about this, but she doesn't have a choice. After 2 hours, Jia realizes how hard it is to be a parent. The doorbell rings and thinking that it's a delivery, she opens the door to find Mincheol standing there. Jia slams the door shut and is wondering what he is doing there. One of the children says that if someone who looks like Mincheol comes, he should be let in because he has food. Jia has been set up. While the kids are eating ice cream, Jia and Mincheol get to talking. Mincheol reveals that Jaemin told him that she was here. Jia protests, but Mincheol reminds her how the contract said they need to talk it out. Mincheol asks why she is mad. After pondering the question while feeding the kids ice cream, which Mincheol refuses to eat, she remembers it's not a big deal since they're both adults. After Jaemin and Jinu got back, they left together for the apartment. On their way back, Mincheol apologizes and says he should have thought about it and said sorry earlier. Jia says that Mincheol is only saying that because that is what Jia wants to hear. She continues by saying Mincheol should be punished with a forehead flick. Mincheol doesn't want one due to past forehead flicking trauma. Before the flick, Jia says she's mad because she doesn't want her first kiss to be an accident. Jia decides to kiss Mincheol on the forehead and says that this is their first kiss. At work, Mincheol is discussing with Sungyu how Jia is mad that people think their first kiss was in kindergarten. Mincheol is worried about how to correct this. But Sungyu shouts that this isn't anything to worry about and explains how he has been very tired ever since the party. Mincheol says that they all left laughing and smiling so he shouldn't be tired. Sungyu avoids the topic and Suyeon appears. Sungyu and Suyeon are so embarrassed they can't even look at each other. Suyeon flees when Mincheol waves. Sungyu introduces himself again. He is very talkative and claims to have a doctorate in loviology, but it's all a lie. He is really an introvert who likes staying at home. But, since he has 3 sisters, he hears a lot of conversations. This made him an expert in reading clues from women. This skill was exhibited at a young age. He quickly became the god of dating because he matches so many together, but he never had a girlfriend before. After his entanglement in the sheets with Suyeon, he was lost because Suyeon apologized after. Sungyu first met Suyeon in college, where he was a freshman and she was a senior. Suyeon was very demanding, but now she is just another adult. So, they decided to forget what happened that night. Now, Sungyu and Suyeon are now awkward every time they meet, indicating they aren't actually adults yet. Suddenly, in the elevator, Sungyu breaks the silence by calling out to Suyeon. But, Sungyu could not get himself to talk about anything and was interrupted by a delivery man. As the day passed, Sungyu was still caught up thinking about Suyeon. Mincheol notices this and asks him what's wrong while handing him a red ginseng stick. Sungyu says nothing's wrong, but then comes to a profound realization. Mincheol is married and could help solve his problem. Sangyu asks for advice on how to break the awkwardness after a fight. Mincheol recalls how he isn't supposed to talk about the marriage, but also remembers how he can be flexible at times. Mincheol decides to be flexible and says that their last fight was resolved by Jia kissing him. This is not what Sungyu wanted to hear. After work, Sungyu is walking and is mad how he gives good advice, but no one can give him advice. He decides to call his second oldest sister, Yenju, for help. She is a popular romance novelist and influencer. Sungyu explains his problem, stating that this is actually his friend's problem, not his. She understands the problem but wants something in return. Sungyu offers to get her 2 boxes of her favorite macarons and she agrees. But, before Yenju starts, she asks if the friend Sungyu is asking for is named Sungyu Choi. After realizing he was caught, Sungyu hung up the phone. But, not all hope is lost as he runs into Jia. The conversation is awkward as they make small talk, and shortly ends as Jia says she needs to go and runs away. Sungyu feels like he recognizes Jia from somewhere. He asks Jia if she is flaming hot chicken feet. Jia is shocked and stops running. Initially, Jia acts like she doesn't know who that is. Sungyu continues by saying that he is Yenju's little brother. Listed off romance novels she's written, such as Is It Hot Because It's Summer and Why Would I Be a No for Miss No, and even said he got her autograph. Jia's pen name is Flaming Hot Chicken Feet. In college, Jia chose a major to get a job rather than chasing her dreams. She barely got into university and didn't enjoy the social life. With nothing to do, she spent her time reading novels at her friend's place. Her friend was Yenju Choi. She was shy and quiet, but what made her special is that she wrote novels. Jia saw her works and decided that writing looked like fun. She was bored and decided to give it a try. 3 months later, Jia won an award and officially became a writer. But Yenju appears jealous. She debuted soon after. Jia didn't expect to win, so she chose a silly pen name. Jia went with Sungyu to talk at a cafe because she didn't have a choice. Sungyu gives Jia the situation. Jia starts by asking if Sungyu needs someone to listen to him or someone who gives him a push. Sungyu is shocked. Jia continues by saying that Sungyu is clearly interested in the girl. After hearing Jia's advice, Sungyu leaves and comments how writers have no empathy, but it was still useful. Sungyu calls Suyeon. Suyeon is shocked and picks up. Sungyu says that he just wanted to hear her voice. Apparently, that wasn't enough, and he asks Suyeon if he can come to her right now. Suyeon is concerned because it's late, but Sungyu reveals he's outside her house. He says it will only take a minute. Suyeon doesn't want to because she is flustered, already took off her makeup and ready for bed. But she agrees and says she'll need 30 minutes to get ready. Suyeon appears dressed in an intricate outfit. They go sit on the swings to talk. Sungyu says he wanted to see her to give her some macarons. Suyeon is impressed because the place always has a long line, and they are delicious. This isn't the real reason Sungyu called her out. Suyeon starts to leave because she thinks that's all Sungyu had to say, but Sungyu stops her. He insists that they should stay on the swings because it is fun. Sungyu musters up some courage and says they need to talk about that day. Suyeon says they agreed to forget about it, but Sungyu says he can't despite his best effort. Sungyu says this is because this is his first time doing stuff like that. Suyeon denies this because he is a relationship expert, but it is true. Sungyu ends by saying that if she wants him to forget it, she will have to tell him how to forget it. But Suyeon doesn't know how to do that and says she doesn't want to forget either. The scene abruptly jumps to Mincheol's house. Jia is eating macarons and Mincheol asks if you gained weight. Jia is shocked and almost chokes. Jia denies it, but Mincheol was actually talking to Mouse. Mouse feels heavier than usual. Jia says that maybe it's because of the cold weather and Mouse is getting ready for hibernation. Mincheol agrees and decides to turn up the thermostat. The next morning, Jia tells Mincheol to have a great day at work and Mincheol surprisingly says see you tonight. Jia is concerned that perhaps Mincheol has caught on to Jia feeding Mouse snacks. Mincheol has an automatic pet feeder that dispenses 3.3 ounces of food per day. Jia saw a mouse crying for snacks because the feeder only gave a set amount, and she gave in. This is why Mouse gained weight. Jia thinks Mouse didn't gain a lot of weight because she would play with Mouse after the snack. But upon picking Mouse up, Mouse is heavier. But Mouse is not the only person who gained weight. Jia had been ordering delivery often to the apartment. Jia decides to step on a scale that she always ignored. The number is a lot higher than expected. The scale must be broken because her clothes still fit. But when she bent down, she heard a ripping noise and knew something needed to change. That evening, Jia asks Mincheol to teach her to work out. Mincheol is very happy and excitedly asks when they can start. Mincheol is very dedicated and workouts every day after work. When Jia tries, she is incapacitated after a few sets and she still has to do legs. Jia is transported to the beach. She says that an asteroid is going to hit Earth and this is their last night. She asks what they could do to make the last night meaningful. Mincheol says the answer is obvious. They will work on legs. Jia wakes up from her dream and is unable to move from being sore. Mincheol was excited that Jia wanted to work out, but is concerned at how much she is struggling. Back at the gym, Jia is doing lunges while Mincheol is cheering her on. At home, Mincheol prepares vegetables for Jia to eat and suggests she take a walk. Jia thinks that she should have lost for 6 pounds by now, but the scale did not change. Back at the gym, Mincheol says if Jia does a routine for 3 minutes per day, she will improve. The first is a 60-second plank. This is hard and Jia needed to do 3 sets. After the sets, Jia thought she had died. Jia looks at Mincheol and is surprised how much he can bench. He was benching 350 pounds for reps. Then, a girl approaches Mincheol and asks if he's a personal trainer. Mincheol is confused, but the girl continues by asking if he could teach her how to use the machines. Mincheol agrees and Jia is shocked. Mincheol shows her how to use the machines and how to do squats, but she is touching Mincheol a lot. This upsets Jia. The girl falls in a cute manner and says it's her first time, but Jia knows it's not. Then the girl says Mincheol is totally her type and asks if he wants to go for coffee after. Jia is shocked, and while she isn't supposed to get involved with his life, she shouts out to Mincheol. Mincheol declines the girl's offer by saying that he is married and announces that Jia is his wife. The entire gym and the girl are shocked. The girl flees from embarrassment. Mincheol and Jia leave the gym, but Jia is also embarrassed. Jia asks if this type of thing happens often, and Mincheol confirms. But Mincheol always declines because he doesn't want to go to a cafe or bar after a workout because there's nothing to eat. But he would go if they had protein shakes. Every time, the girl stops coming to the gym 3 days later. Jia is put at ease because she knows nothing will happen. Jia is grateful that Mincheol is helping her, but she wants to quit because it's hard. On their way back, Jia notices that Mincheol is smiling. He says it's because he gets to work out with Jia. This makes it hard for Jia to quit. The next morning, Jia goes for a light jog to relieve muscle aches. At the track, a hooded man asks if she is Jia, and Jia is shocked to see this man. Jia tries to run away, but since they are both out of shape and the man has asthma, they stop. The man gives Jia his business card. His name is Yengduek Na and a former main producer. His business card has a ruler, but it is wrong. He printed it wrong on purpose for marketing. Since Jia asked about it, the marketing worked. Yengduek asks if Jia is still writing. Jia says that's insulting, and he apologizes for what happened. He gets a call for a meeting and says they should get dinner sometime. As he leaves, Jia crumbles up the card and starts jogging again. Jia returns home, and Mincheol is concerned why they are eating a candlelit dinner with fancy clothing and cutlery. Jia wanted to mix things up because they eat the same thing every day. Mincheol is uncomfortable and Jia feels bad about it. After dinner, she is in her room and anxious about how she keeps running into people from her past. Then, Mincheol knocks on her door wearing a suit and asks for a dance. Jia tries to close the door, but Mincheol blocks it. Jia concedes, and they sit on the sofa. Mincheol says that Jia was acting weird, so he wanted to cheer her up with a dance. Jia is confused, but Mincheol says that this is what they do in the movies. Jia thinks this is romantic. Jia asks what type of movies Mincheol is referring to, and he says Bollywood movies. In those films, they dance all the time, including when they are sad and during gunfights. Mincheol continues by saying that when you do something alone, it is weird, but when you do it together, it is fun. So, they might as well make the weird setting fun. Jia bursts into laughter and confirms that she said that. Jia then suggests that she has something better than dancing. They go to a barbecue spot and have pork belly and soju. Mincheol comments how they could have gone to somewhere nice with candles since they dressed up, but Jia says there is fire right in front of them. Jia says getting dressed up and going to a fancy restaurant is normal, but going dressed up to a barbecue place is weirder and more fun. Just thought of something fun. She picks up greens and tells Mincheol to say ah. Mincheol protests, but Jia says to play along. Mincheol realizes that Jia put peppers in the greens and has a funny reaction. They then go to karaoke. Jia is having fun. She never thought that doing something that is seen as weird would be exciting, but she had too much fun and got embarrassed. Mincheol, on the other hand, doesn't get embarrassed and just enjoys it. Jia then thanks Mincheol for hanging out with her, and Mincheol is confused. Jia says that she'll repay him for the night and says they should go home. But before they leave, Mincheol grabs her hand and asks why Jia always has the last word and that he has something to say. He puts his hands on her chin as if he's preparing to kiss her. Jia remembers when she was 10 years old and watching a drama series. This is where she discovered that kissing is embarrassing. Jia asks her mom why they are kissing when it is embarrassing, but her mom says it's fine. Her mom later explained that those types of moments happen out the blue and Jia didn't understand. But now, she does. Jia puckers her lips and is ready to kiss. But Mincheol has other plans. He picks a loose thread that was on her neck that was bothering him. Jia is mad. She grabs Mincheol by the tie and kisses him. Mincheol is confused, but Jia said it was complimentary. She continues by saying she did it because she wanted to. In the bathroom, Jia is embarrassed that she kissed Mincheol in a public place. Her excuse was nonsense. Mincheol is also in the bathroom washing his face. She does not know why she kissed Mincheol. After recalling key moments from her marriage, she laughs and has a realization. While they were kissing, several small Jia-like figures stop them and demand they kiss better. For a real kiss, you have to stick your tongue in their mouth and move it around. Jia confirms that she did this. Then, the small Jias tell them to kiss again and they do. But, this was all a dream and Jia woke up. Jia is surprised she had a dream about kissing Mincheol. She walks to the bathroom and upon opening the door, Mincheol is there. He just finished his shower and looks incredibly hot. Jia is embarrassed. Mincheol asks if Jia is in a bad mood, but she says she had a bad dream. She remembers them eating yesterday, and she slams her head on the table in embarrassment. Jia covers this up when Mincheol asks by saying there was a mosquito on the table. Jia believes that she is a victim of the suspension bridge effect, which means feelings of excitement towards someone increases during a time of anxiety. Every day is a time of anxiety because she is worried they might get caught and because she is working out. She concludes that this is a misinterpretation of feelings. Mincheol kneels down to Jia's level and asks if she is sick. Jia gets embarrassed because he is too close. She says she's fine, so Mincheol is relieved. But he wants to talk about last night. Before he gets the chance, Jia leaves. Mincheol is now at work and Sung-yu notices Mincheol's mismatching socks and suggests that he had a hectic morning. Mincheol even threw out the full instant coffee packet instead of the end. While drinking, he remembers his kiss with Jia and doesn't know what to do. Mincheol and Jia are now at the gym to work out, but their interactions are awkward. It was just an accident, but Jia is still bothered by it. Jia thinks that Mincheol isn't bothered by it either because he doesn't have a visible reaction. After stretching, Mincheol says they will do the bench press. Jia is concerned because she saw a video of someone getting crushed by the weight and that she shouldn't do it. Mincheol says that while it could happen, he has a lot of experience, so she'll probably be fine. Jia lies down and is scared of the bar. She says if she gets crushed, she is going to write Mincheol's name in her will even though she will be dead. Mincheol added to 20 pounds plates and Jia is ready to go. Jia is concerned, but Mincheol says it's fine because it's only 60 pounds total. Mincheol lifts up the bar and tells Jia to give it a try. Jia is embarrassed and grabs the bar. While she is lowering the bar with Mincheol's help, Jia is worried because it feels like her heart is going to pound out of her chest. Jia is concerned that Mincheol is too close to her, so she starts doing reps on her own. After the bench, Jia thinks that they ended their relationship the way it is. Since she is sweating, she takes off her tracksuit, but Mincheol puts it back on her. Jia is confused, but Mincheol says that she might get a cold. Jia confirms by saying that she doesn't want a cold, but she continues by asking if what Mincheol just said was nonsense. She can't stop a cold with her thin jacket. If she could, everyone else in the gym would be frozen. Jia notices Mincheol looking away and asks if Mincheol is bothered by Jia's clothing being too thin. Mincheol responds by taking his shirt off. Jia tries to stop him and Mincheol asks if taking his shirt off bothers her. Jia avoids the question, but Mincheol continues by saying that it bothers him when Jia does it and aligns her jacket. On their way back, Mincheol was silent. Jia remembers that Mincheol has always been this way. When Jia hurt her leg when they were kids, Mincheol insisted on carrying her home even though he was shorter than her. It took them 2 hours to go home when it was normally a 20-minute walk, but Mincheol was happy about it. Back to the present, Mincheol says Jia did a good job and to keep it up tomorrow. Jia seems happy and grabs Mincheol's hand. Mincheol is confused. Jia says that he has a problem he can let go. Jia then ponders that if they had a different start, how would it end up? The scene shifts to Yenju and Yengduek having dinner. He mentions that he recently saw Jia. Yenju asks who that is, but when Yenduek describes what she was doing and who she is, Yenju avoids the topic and says they should eat before their steak gets cold. Yenduek believes that she hadn't gotten over what happened. The scene shifts back to Sung-yu and Suyin on the swings. Before Suyin could say anything meaningful, she gets embarrassed and says they should talk another time. Sung-yu is mad and asks if he's too much for her. Suyin knows, but she's scared of changing their relationship because Sung-yu is the only person she can really talk to. But Sung-yu isn't happy and points out that Suyin crossed the line first and initiated. Then, Sung-yu declared that he likes Suyin. Suyin agrees to go out with Sung-yu. Sung-yu and Suyin are now dating, and their car ride with Mincheol is awkward. At the office, Sung-yu is focused on his work and doesn't even eat lunch with Suyin. They say goodbye after work and exchange texts. This cycle repeats until Sung-yu realizes this is no different than before. Suyin has the same idea that they need something to break the pattern. Suyin texts first and asks if he has a sec, but she misspells it, which confuses Sung-yu. Suyin quickly corrects it, but once again clicks X instead of C. Suyin is very embarrassed and Sung-yu calls her. Suyin picks up, and Sung-yu asks if Suyin meant to say if he had a second to talk, and that he does have time to talk. Sung-yu's consideration had a huge effect on Suyin, and she is silent. This silence makes Sung-yu think he messed up, but Suyin then confirms that she meant to say that. They make small talk, but Suyin doesn't have the courage to say anything, so she yawns. Sung-yu compliments her voice, and before Suyin can hang up, Sung-yu suggests they go on a date. Suyin is confused, but agrees. Sung-yu suggests that they go now despite it being 11:38 p.m. because he wants to see her right now. But Suyin angrily says that it's rude to show up out of nowhere when she isn't ready. They decide on a later day for the date. On the day of the date, they meet up, but Suyin is wearing a trench coat with a hat, mask and sunglasses, so no one recognizes her. They decide to go into the movies and question the odds that they run into something they know. Then they run into Jia. They exchange awkward greetings until Jia notices Suyin. She remembers Sung-yu asking for advice, and now knows he was successful. Jia congratulates Sung-yu, but Suyin is concerned about what to do. Jia makes fun of them going on a date during the day, and they leave. On their way out, Suyin says that she notices Sung-yu and Jia were surprisingly close. Sung-yu then hugs Suyin. Minchil then appears holding a spaghetti man branded tomato sauce that is limited to one per customer. Sung-yu hugs Suyin, so Minchil didn't notice them. When Minchil leaves, they separate and get embarrassed. They express how hot it is, which is from their embarrassment, and decide to get cold noodles for lunch. At the trending cold noodle place, two more people from the office were there, so they had an awkward lunch. At karaoke, someone from work was there. Even the once famous cafe is closed. After getting ice cream, Sung-yu complains how they keep running into people at work. Then, he notices that Suyin has ice cream on her cheek and decides to clean it up with his finger and lick it. Suyin and Sung-yu are embarrassed, but Sung-yu is still happy about the day. As the day comes to an end, they don't want to say goodbye. But they've done everything they planned and can't think of anything else. Sung-yu suggests they need to get going, and Suyin agrees. Suddenly, they appear in front of a motel, and Sung-yu is in awe of its size. Sung-yu cannot think straight and grabs Suyin's hand and pulls her into the building. To her surprise, they are in an arcade, not the motel. But Sung-yu thinks Suyin is disappointed they didn't go into the motel when in reality, she is embarrassed that her mind is in the gutter. Sung-yu does not know what to do. He grabs Suyin and says that he remembers she wanted this fox plush. Suyin denies it, but Sung-yu insists she spent $50 trying to get it. Sung-yu declares that he will get the fox. This is his chance to make it up to her. He is determined to get the fox. After spending $120, the owner gave them a similar looking fox. Sung-yu thinks he's screwed. They couldn't do any of the activities in peace, and it was the worst date imaginable. They arrive at Suyin's house and Sung-yu apologizes for the awful first date. But Suyin had fun today. The cold noodles were delicious. Trying to get the fox was fun, and trying to avoid people was exciting. Sung-yu is embarrassed and insists that he will get her a bigger fox on their next date. They part ways and Sung-yu goes home to his parents and declares he loves them. Suyin puts the fox next to a bunny plush Sung-yu got her in the past and is happy. Back at Minchil's house, they are watching Spaghetti Man on the sofa and Jia is sleeping on Minchil's lap. Back earlier in the day, Jia had gotten a call from her family and was about to get the Galaxy Wars movie spoiled. So, Jia and Minchil go watch the movie. Jia is on a diet, so she gets Diet Coke with popcorn. But the movie was boring and Jia is in agony because she suggested they watch it. Jaimin knew how bad it was and suggested it anyway. Back at the house, Jia decides that she's going to watch a real movie. Jia says that Minchil can do anything he wants, but he sits on the sofa and watches with her. Minchil is eating carrots and cucumbers during the movie, and Jia thinks this is weird, but she ended up mindlessly eating them during the movie. They ended up watching 3 movies, which brings us back to the present. Jia fell asleep on Minchil's lap and was embarrassed. Jia quickly moves away and asks how long she was like that. Minchil says about 1 hour. Jia is worried that something happened while she was asleep. So, she asked Minchil if something happened and he starts talking about things that happened in the movie, not real life. Jia notices that the only time Minchil has shown emotion is when she asked him to work out. She realizes that she is just dragging Minchil into things. Jia decides to lay down and poke Minchil with her feet, stating that she has long legs. Minchil is confused, asking if she has a reason. She does not. Minchil decides to massage Jia's feet. He does not have a reason for this either, but Jia is shocked. Jia says it tickles, but Minchil continues because he is concerned about her muscles being tight. Jia is having a good time and remembers that Mincheol has always been good at stuff like back rubs. This is until Mincheol pressed her foot too hard, causing Jia to shoot up and her face to be right next to Mincheol's. Jia gets embarrassed and it seems they are about to kiss. But Jia's foot starts to cramp and Mincheol starts to meow in response. Jia is confused but he insists that this is to scare away the cramp. Jia is now washing her face and realizes that she is always the one embarrassed. But that is not important because they almost kissed during the massage, which is a problem. Everything was there and it was going to happen if Jia didn't cramp. Jia remembers that Mincheol didn't look like he was against the idea. She wants Mincheol to make the first move for once, but then she realizes that he is generally clueless. Then, Jia tastes something bitter and thinks it's cucumber. But Jia didn't eat cucumber during the movie because she doesn't like it. There is only one possibility. Mincheol must have kissed when she was asleep on his lap. Before Mincheol leaves for work the next day, Jia asks if nothing truly happened. Mincheol says nothing happened and when Jia pressed about it, Mincheol got embarrassed and left. Jia now knows something happened and planned to mess with Mincheol for the next few days. But Mincheol started to avoid Jia at all costs. Jia respects Mincheol's privacy, but it's almost as if he is avoiding all conversation with Jia. After a few days of this, Mincheol even texted her that he is not going to the gym. Jia is shocked and decides to start typing a long message. But then Mincheol calls her and she leaves for a bar. When he arrives, Mincheol is sleeping on the table and Sungyu is crying. From the table, Jia thinks they are both extremely drunk. Jia realizes that since Mincheol is red from drinking too much, Sungyu is the source of the problem. When Jia confronts Sungyu, he says that Mincheol is the one who wanted to drink. Sungyu mentioned that Mincheol seemed off for the last few days and was making mistakes. He asked if Jia and Mincheol had a fight. In the taxi ride home, Jia ponders this question and Mincheol drunkenly asks if Jia is there while leaning on her. During this, Mincheol tries to kiss Jia. When Jia says no, Mincheol recalls that Jia said it's up to the person that gives a kiss. Jia denies this. Jia actually said it's complimentary service, but it's the same thing despite Jia trying to deny it. The driver asks if they are newlyweds. Jia gets embarrassed and realizes that they are acting like a newlywed couple. Then, the driver comments how Jia's husband must love her, and Jia remembers that Mincheol is actually her husband. When Jia says Mincheol is a thorn in her side, the driver asks if they got in a fight. Jia decides they should go somewhere other than Mincheol's apartment. Mincheol soon wakes up, and he and Jia are in a Ferris wheel. Jia had gotten all-access passes to an amusement park. Since barely anyone else is on the Ferris wheel, they can use the pass to keep going around the Ferris wheel. Mincheol tries to get off, but Jia stops him. Jia then asks Mincheol if he remembers passing out at the bar. She believes he was drinking because of her and the contract says that they need to talk it out. Jia wanted to talk about it, but Mincheol kept avoiding her. Because of all the trouble she's been through, Mincheol owes it to her to stay on the Ferris wheel. A Jia Han-sponsored event occurs, and they begin their first round of truth or dare. Mincheol is confused. Jia explains that you need to answer the question truthfully, or you get punished, which is a forehead flick. If he lies, the game ends. Mincheol doesn't want a forehead flick, and this makes Jia remember kissing his forehead. Mincheol still doesn't want to since truth or dare makes a fool of the person. Jia says that this won't happen because she won't lie due to her having an unpleasant memory relating to Yenju. Jia provokes Mincheol by saying that this is his chance to ask her anything and even flick her. Mincheol agrees and asks who goes first. They play rock paper scissors for it and Jia wins. Jia's question is if Mincheol likes her. Mincheol gets embarrassed and doesn't answer. The countdown is up and Jia flicks his forehead. It is Mincheol's turn and he asks if she likes him. Jia says that she doesn't not like him and gets embarrassed. Mincheol is confused and tries to ask another question, but Jia stops him. Jia starts her next question. She says she could taste cucumbers after the movie even though she doesn't eat cucumbers. Also, Mincheol started avoiding her after that night. Jia asks if Mincheol did something while she was sleeping. Mincheol is speechless. Jia continues by asking if Mincheol kissed her that night. Jia says that there's no point in avoiding it because they're going to stay there until she gets the answer. Mincheol says that he didn't kiss her. Jia ends the game and declares Mincheol is lying. Mincheol says that he did kiss her that night, just not on the lips. He kissed her forehead. The reason she tasted cucumbers is because he put his finger on her lips. Minchil says that he was looking at her face while she was sleeping and it just happened. Jia is confused why they had all this trouble, because Minchil kissed her once. Minchil apologizes, but Jia feels disappointed, suggesting that she wanted something more. Minchil apologizes again. Jia says he doesn't have to, but he is apologizing for what he is about to do. Fireworks go off and Minchil kisses Jia on the lips. Jia is shocked that Minchil is the one initiating. The kiss was bitter because Minchil was eating cucumbers at the bar. Jia pulls away because of the taste, and before she can ask a question, Minchil passes out. Jia is struggling to take Minchil out of the Ferris wheel. Jia and Minchil refer to this night as the first great drinking apocalypse. Because of this, they added no kissing after eating cucumbers to their contract. As Minchil leaves for work, he says that he thought she would be more mad. Minchil says that since he can't kiss after eating cucumbers, then he can when he hasn't. Jia demands Minchil to leave for work. At work, Minchil apologizes to Sungyu about last night. While Jia is vacuuming, she gets a notification on her phone. Her stock portfolio had gone down significantly. Jia is devastated. Jia is not a freelancer who's not working. She is a freelancer who doesn't need to work. The royalties and dividends from stocks she owns is enough to pay the bills. She is quite loaded. Well, she was loaded. Jia thinks her stock app is broken. Why else would the value be falling so much? She lost 9.28%. Jia decides to wait it out because selling is for noobs. Her stocks went down before, so it's fine. For days later, she has lost 18.18% and Minchil is concerned by her behavior. There is news that a businessman is getting a divorce, so Jia sells her stocks. The next morning, the stock is up 12.3%. Jia is very angry and starts cussing the businessman out. Jia decides to go out and eat. Jia realizes that if she buys stocks when they're down, she's basically getting a discount. Jia continues to sell her stocks low and buys high. Jia is now at the gym and her stocks are worth less than her original investment. Minchil asks if Jia is going to work out, and she says yes. Minchil also asks if Jia has been playing a game on her phone since she's always looking at it. Jia decides to lie to not worry Minchil and says she has been watching a show. After their workout, Jia's investment goes even lower and she deletes the app because she can't stand to look at it. Later that day, there was a scandal with the businessman which caused the stock to plummet further. She should have sold her stocks, but if she never sells, she never actually lost any money. This is perfect logic for Jia. Then, Minchil appears and asks Jia a question. He looks very concerned and asks if Jia likes someone else. Jia is shocked. She denies it and Minchil said that saw a video about married couples. It said that if your spouse starts acting differently, they might have someone else. Jia is still confused, until she realizes she checked off all the boxes for suspicious behavior. Minchil pointed out that she also lied at the gym when she said she was watching a show. Minchil says that Jia has a tendency to share interesting and funny things with others, but Jia didn't share the name of the show with Minchil. Jia thinks Minchil took it the wrong way, so she tells him the truth. Minchil is shocked that Jia lost that much. But Jia just didn't want Minchil to worry. Minchil is concerned and asks if it's really okay that she lost all her savings and what is going to do about living expenses. Jia says that she will just work for money, but it is not actually fine. But what is worse than losing her money is the impression this left on Minchil. Minchil suggests that he could pick up more of the bills, but Jia stops him. Jia says that they should take care of their own issues when it comes to money, which is why she didn't tell him at first. This is a matter of pride for Jia. When she moved out, she promised herself that she would handle her own life. She is proud she hasn't had to borrow money from anyone. Minchil stands up and says that he trusts Jia while touching her ears. Jia is embarrassed and smacks Minchil on the forehead. Minchil was simply giving Jia his energy by touching her ears. Minchil says they used to do this in the past, and they would yell energy infusion when doing it. Jia smacks Minchil again and leaves. She is angry that he would bring something from the past up, and once she leaves, she realizes touching someone's ears is a very sensual thing. 1 week later, Jia is going to job interviews, and Minchil says good luck before she leaves. Jia has been too lucky throughout her life, but her struggle to get a job starts now. However, while walking, Truck Kun appears in front of her. If you like this video, please support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. Also, comment below which series I should do next. Thank you for watching. See you next time.